This is Europe's oldest cranial supposed. There's no evidence that it's cranial modification. That what the title should say is Europe's oldest elongated head found in Italian cave, because they don't really have
12,000
any
years ago,
evidence.
the Younger Dryas boundary layer.
Exactly. Right after whatever happened on Earth, they were still trying to keep what they had before. We don't know what that is. But this was a skull found that's 12,190 years old. And I thought that was, or maybe 12,620 years, but it puts it right after this event that happened on Earth that fundamentally changed and probably destroyed whatever civilization existed. I'm going to go ahead and say that. But if you look at this guy, he doesn't look like the ones in Paracas or any of that. This is more like a Neanderthal
this is a European skull, right?
Yes. And found in Italy. And by the way, 12,000 years old is quite some time ago. And this guy has what looks like a Neanderthal skull. It's elongated backwards, but this is also the type of skull you find in Egypt in the royal families. The same kind of elongation. So
the elongation was more of an upward sort of 45-degree angle in the ones that they found in South America versus this lower angle out.
But what's weird about it is these guys all genetically link back to the same place around the Black Sea, which is kind of the origin of really civilization. It's the part they don't tell you about, where the horses and carts and all of that stuff come from. But it just shows that they were in a transitional period at the same time.
Well, the Chaldeans there too, as well, on the western shore of the Black Sea, they found an enormous amount of ruins around 40 foot in depth off the shoreline there. And they found jewelry making and different types of gemstone work with such precise needle and incision holes on it that could only have done from power drills and some types of technologies that were at least 4,000 years advanced from where they supposedly sat at around 6,000 years prior. So if you started talking about that same area, the same phenomenon, there's incredibly out of time technologies that existed through that entire realm right there. So if that's where the horse, these different types of chariots and buggies and, horsemanship came from far prior to anything that we knew from Genghis Khan, etc. But once you come back further into the metallurgy and the stonework and the drills and the things that were supposedly not until certain times after, then what was it about that region? Was it another out of region that had been rediscovered? We're so used to out of Africa, but there was supposedly an out of region in the Balkan areas too. And that's really not too far from that Black Sea, the Balkan area, Black Sea. What if that region in itself was one time prior back from the out of Africa theory where a lot of things arose supposedly? What if it was two times on the twist of the clock? We're not even talking great years, we're talking ice age cycles. The times multiple ice age cycles of the emanation of technologies and the dominant gene species from a certain area that then circulated, how much of our history is even false? I mean, out of Africa is probably, you start to look at it, doesn't seem like it's a valid theory anyway, but if you want to categorize it as something of that one particular area where an enormous amount of influence for the rest of the world off of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, then I would definitely be looking at the Black Sea. There's a lot of, isn't there an artifact under there that sort of looks like the Star Wars Falcon or whatever out of the Star Wars movie? There's some sort of temple that looks like the Millennium Falcon out of the movie there as well. And that could have been carved or constructed some 12,000 plus years ago as well. It's at the bottom of the sea. Is it in the Black Sea or is it in a different sea?
It is in the Black Sea, but we have to remember the Black Sea was a secondary flood.
Yep.
So whatever the big flood was,
that was land subsidence. I think it sank. I think it was much higher and then it sank down into that deposit area.
Well, we know people inhabited the whole bottom of what is now called the Black Sea, even after what we call the Great Flood. And they know an event happened there where basically the pressure of the ocean and the Mediterranean Sea finally broke through and flooded that area. And so a lot of stuff is lost there. But when you track back Neanderthal, Denisovan, and Cro-Mag, this is the area in which they met. They not only met there, this is where the wheel probably was invented and the bow and arrow and things like that. And the reason I say that is because genetic populations that became Native Americans went the other direction, and you can keep track of these by haptypes. So, like me, for example, I'm a U2 or U2E, and the people that are most similar to me as far as the maternal haptype live in that area of southern Russia, in Mongolia, and those areas. That's where the haptype is. Those are the same populations that later became Native Americans, but they also became European people, different peoples in there. They went the other way. So you can keep track of the haptypes. But a weird thing about that is we know that, Native Americans had the bow and arrow, but they didn't have the wheel. So they must have left literally right before that. You know what I mean? On when they started traveling, because they didn't take that technology with us, or with them, excuse me. Um, but what's weird is later, all the way recently, the Aztec was still using the atl, which is a ice age tool or weapon. And it was the same design as it's been for the last 20,000 years. So it's kind of weird. And I
If
wanted
it
to,
works, why change it? The obvious question: are you on shrooms? Illuminated shrooms, combining 6 powerful mycelium in a fulvic mineral delivery system, selected for their synergistic, restorative, and protective actions. Potent. And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air. So please remember that link's in the description box below. And are you shrooming? Please remember civilizationcycle.com, and also buy me a coffee /civilization cycle.